Hi, good evening, all. This is Vishal Singhal from Strat, your host for today. So we have Ms. Mehak Mahendru, BTech third year student from Manipal University, Jaipur, as our webinar deliverer today. She will be taking us through supervised machine learning techniques. So this session is being recorded and will be shared on our Strat YouTube channel in 2-3 days time. I suggest if you have any questions, please keep asking them as and when they come to your mind, and we will try to answer them on the slide or towards the end of the webinar. As he says, there's a lot of content, so we would like to answer all of them towards the end of the webinar. But unless it is slide critical, we will answer them uh, right then and there. So, ready, Mehak?
Yeah.
Over to you. Please share your screen and go ahead.
Is it visible?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is Mehak Mahendru. I am a third year BTech student at Manipal University, Jaipur. Today, I will be talking to you about supervised machine learning techniques. So, what is supervised machine learning? Basically, it is a model that trains on structured or labeled data. It forms a hypothesis by training on this data. So, what it does is it gives a function for future predictions by training on past data. Now, what is the basic difference between structured and unstructured data, or supervised or unsupervised machine learning? So it is the data that the model uses. That is the difference between supervised and unsupervised machine learning techniques. Supervised machine learning techniques uses structured data. The basic difference between the two types of data is the presence of label. So as you can see here, we have input features as well as labels present in this data. The input features are age and estimated salary. So in a structured data, both of these things, all three columns will be present. And in unstructured data, the purchased column will not be present. Now there are different types of supervised machine learning algorithms. Before that, so we can see here that in the model, the labeled data, the images of a hexagon, square, and triangle, these are sent into the model, and the labels, the hexagon, the name of the shapes are given into the model. This model then finds a function, makes a function, which it gives to the test data to test on, and the accuracy is checked. And if the accuracy is low, the model is trained again to find a new function. So there are different types of supervised machine learning techniques that are classification and regression. So what happens in classification is that there are classes present. So for example, we have to predict whether a person has diabetes or not. So let's say the blue dots represent a person with diabetes and the red dots represent a person who does not have diabetes. So these are the two classes that form. So the line stretched between them separates these two classes. In regression, on the other hand, the data is continuous and there is a line fit between this data. And for example, let's say we are predicting house prices or stock market prices. Okay, so every day the price changes. That is what we are spotting here. The data samples are spread in a continuous manner. Now, what is overfitting or underfitting of a model? So what happens is when a model is poorly trained on the data and is unable to make correct predictions, it is said to be underfitted. As we can see, the data is in a curved manner, but there is a straight line stretched on it. So let's say I'm predicting some value here. So the actual value is present here, but my prediction is on this line. So the distance between these points and the line is very high. This is the error. When the error increases, our accuracy of the model decreases. What happens in the overfitted model? So in an overfitted model, the model is very sensitive to the data. So any changes made in the data, the model picks it up. So as you can see, the model is curving again and again according to the data. Now this is also not good for our model because let's say I give it new test data and it is too well fitted to the training data, it will make poor predictions on my test data. What we need is a generalized model as given here. So in a curved manner, the line is stretched according to the data. So it is a well-fitted model. So what happens is in an overfitted model, let's say our model is trained on this image of 5. Now as you can see, it is a little broken image, but our model thinks that every image of 5 should be exactly like this. So when a normal image of 5 is given to it, the model makes wrong predictions on the data. Now, some terms that we usually hear about in data science world are label data. So what is label data? As we've seen here, the label is present. So the data is marked. Like let's say we are finding if a person purchased a house or not. So 0 is for the person does not purchase a house and 1 is for the person purchasing a house. So this is a label data, i.e. we have the outputs already on hand. In an unlabeled data, we don't have the labels present, so it is unmarked data. What is training data set? So when we are provided with a data set, let's say we have a data set of 1,000 images. Okay, so here we have a data set that has 1,000 images in it. We split this data set such that 800 images are given to the training and 200 of these images are given for testing. So generally the data is split in 80-20 percentage, but let's say we have a bigger data of about 10,000 data samples. So these 10,000 data samples will split between 9,000 training data and 1,000 of test data. So now the split is 90 and 10. So it depends on the data set that is provided to us of how we split the data. Test data and training data. Now we have validation data set. So what is validation data set? Let's say your model has been overfitted on training data as well as test data. So we have provided another data set that is known as the validation data set for the model to test upon. Regression. So what happens in regression is that we have a continuous graph. In maths, we have all studied the equation of a line, that's y is equal to mx plus c. The same is used for linear regression, which is the general equation for regression problem is y is equal to wx plus b. Where W is the weights vector, B is the bias, and X is the input feature. So when we have one single input feature, it is known as a linear regression problem. The model then trains on the data and it assigns value to these two parameters, then the two parameters being weights and bias. Then it checks the function on the test data set. If the accuracy is not good, then the model trains again to find better values for the two parameters. There are different types of regression problems: linear regression, multiple linear regression, polynomial regression, decision trees, random forests, and SVMs. Now, what happens in linear and multiple linear regression? In linear regression, we have one single feature X, and in multiple linear regression, we have multiple input features. So the data set provided here, we have only one input feature, the area, and price is our label or Y. Okay, but in multiple linear regression, as we can see here, we have four input features: year, month, interest rate, unemployment rate, and one label, stock index price. So this data is used for stock price predictions. Okay, so here we'll use multiple linear regression. Now what happens is that when a model trains, it gives us a line function which represents, let's say, a line. Now let's say my model gives an output y is equal to 3x plus 4. So 3 here is the w and 4 is the b. Just a second. Let's see here. Y is equal to 3x plus 4. So 3 here is the weights vector and 4 here is our bias. And this is the line it represents. So what happens is this line will give a very high error value. Why is that? Because as we can see, the data sample points are very far from this line. So when we find the distance of each point from this line and sum them up, the value would be too high. Our main objective in a regression problem is to decrease this value, to decrease the error so that our accuracy increases. So our model will train again and again, and let's say it finds an equation that is 5x plus 4 hypothetically. This is a new equation and this represents this line. This red line is the best fit line. Why is that? When we sum up all the distances of these points to the line, that sum will be minimum for this line. That means that any other line on this graph will have higher sum than this line has. So this is known as a best fit line. This is the main objective in a regression problem, to find the best fit line and to decrease the accuracy. Now, polynomial regression. Now, sometimes what happens is that we don't get data that is in a straight line, but is in a curved manner. Now, in a curved manner, if I put a straight line in this data, let's say I draw a straight line here, the data samples are the sum of all the data samples from the line is too high. Our main objective was to minimize this distance, but this distance is very high. Any line that I draw, any line, it will have very high error values and our accuracy will be very low. So what we do is we form a polynomial function like this. So as we can see, the degree of this function is 2. Now what happens with the degree 2 function? A curve is formed through the data set. Now this is a very good fitted curve. Why is that? Because the sum of all the data samples through this line, the sum of distance from the data samples to this curve is minimum. So this is known as a good fitted curve. That is how we use polynomial regression. Now, loss or cost function are basically the value of the values, like we've seen here. The distance between these data points and the line is need to be minimized. So the actual value, let's say for -2, the actual value is somewhere here, and the predicted value is on this red line. So what we do is we find the difference of the predicted value and the actual value, square them up, and find the mean of these values. So this is the number of test samples. This is known as mean square error or loss or cost function. This equation needs to be minimized. Now, as we have studied in maths, to minimize some equation, we find its first differentiation and equate it to 0. That's exactly what we do here. So we have 1/2 mean squared error. Now why do we half it? Because when I find the first derivative, the 2 will come out here and the 2 and 2 cancel. So there is not much significance of this 2. It can be avoided as well. So this function is the y is equal to mx plus c function, which is represented as theta naught plus theta 1x. So theta naught and theta 1 are the two parameters, the bias and the weight, that we need to find the values of. So that function, the model will train, it finds a function, it keeps the function here, it derivates it and finds the value of the cost. Then the cost is kept here. The alpha is the learning rate, which is set by the user. Okay, I'll tell you more about alpha in the next slides. Now, when I have to find the parameter, let's say I have to find the theta naught value, then I'll keep theta naught, the half differentiation of the theta naught function side of the cost function, and we'll multiply it with alpha and we'll find the new value of theta naught. Now this new value will be substituted here to find a better function for our model. Now what happens in gradient descent is that, let's say this JW is basically our MSC value and W is our weight. So let's say on my initial weight, the cost that I derived was somewhere here. Now on every iteration, my weight will change. The model will change, give me a new weight, and on every iteration, I will jump and come to the global minimum point. So when the global minimum is reached, this is the minimum cost that we can have, and that's how a function is formed in our model. If I have a very large or a very small learning rate, it creates a problem. How? Let's say this is our graph of gradient descent and this is the minimum we need to reach. This is my initial point from where I start measuring my cost function. Now cost function here is low, but every time that after every iteration, due to a very high learning rate, instead of converging to the minimum point, my cost value increases and it keeps on increases. So this will create a problem because my cost function will never converge to its minimum value. On the other hand, if I have a very small learning rate, it will take too many iterations to reach the minimum point. This is again a problem because it will take too long for me to reach my global minimum. Now, classification. So basically in classification, what we do is we predict a class. So let's say I'm given a data of iris dataset. It is a very common data set. And here I'm predicting my classes. So I have three kinds of classes: Setosa, versicolor, and virginica. These are the three classes that are given to me. So what classification does is it creates classes to separate the data samples according to their predicted class. The different algorithms used for classification are logistic regression, SVM, k-nearest neighbor, naive-based decision trees, and random forest. As we see, decision tree and random forest were present in our regression problem as well. This is because these algorithms can do both the work for classification problem as well as regression problem. Now in logistic regression, even though the word says regression, it is a classification algorithm. So logistic regression, we have binary classification. What logistic regression does, it classifies our outputs in zeros and one. Okay, so let's say I have two classes. It uses the sigmoid function. Now what is a sigmoid function? It is basically an S curve which ranges from 0 to 1. The Z here stands for Wx. Now what is Wx? We were given y is equal to Wx plus b in our regression problem, correct? Now what we do is, instead of b, we take y is equal to w1 x1 plus w0 x0. Okay, why we do this is, now we can create two vectors, a weight vector which is w1 and w0, and an x vector that is x1 and x0. So we can create two vectors and form the dot product of these two vectors and represent our y function as wx. This wx is the value of z. So what we do in a sigmoid function, okay, I have a question here. What is the difference between supervised and unsupervised algorithms? Now what happens is, as I said before, supervised algorithms use structured data. So what is structured data? When I'm given labels in a data. So let's say I am given, just a second. I am given a data like this. Okay. So I'm given a data where I have input features, all my input features, and I have a label as well. So in supervised learning, what happens is that I give the whole data to my model to train on, and then my model gets the output label as well. Okay, so it trains that, okay, year 2017, 12th month of December of 2017, the interest rate was 2.75, the unemployment rate was 5.3, so the price was 1464. Okay, so it trains like this on supervised data, and then it makes future predictions according to the past data. What happens in unsupervised learning is, like we have in Netflix, that when we watch a movie, we are recommended more movies. Okay, how does that happen is that our model is given unstructured data. It is given that, okay, Mehak is watching this particular movie and the genre of this movie is thriller. So that's all the data it's given to it. It makes patterns out of that data. It does not have labels. So what it does, it makes patterns. It see, okay, the 4 movies that I watched, 3 of them are thriller movies. So the next movie it gives to me is a thriller movie. Okay, so other question I have is, can you list some algorithms under each category? Yeah, so under supervised learning, we have classification algorithms like k-nearest neighbor or logistic regression, as I've said here. And under unsupervised learning, we have clustering algorithms. So it is clustering algorithms and anomaly detection. These are all used for making prediction on what the person might want to watch, or like in Amazon when we go to buy something. So according to my previous purchases, Amazon will give me new suggestions that, okay, you bought, let's say, something to, let's say you bought a chair, so would you like a table? So that's how a prediction is made. So Amazon basically it uses clustering algorithms and other unstructured unsupervised learning algorithms to make suggestions to the buyer or the customer. Okay, coming back to logistic regression. So logistic regression is basically used for binary classification. So let's say my output is 0 or 1. Okay. So it uses something called a sigmoid function. So a sigmoid function is an S curve. And like I said, Z is basically, what is Z? It is the dot product of weights vector and the input features. This Z is given here, and it is then used to find our sigmoid value. So even when we used to find something for regression problem, the output was continuous, right? But when we use sigmoid function on this equation, the output becomes something in a range of 0 to 1. So if the output of sigmoid function is greater than 0.5, then we set our output as 1, and if it's less than 0.5, we set an output as 0. So what happens is, let's say I'm given a data set of images of cat or not a cat. Okay, and now I have to form a model that predicts if the image given to me is of a cat or not of a cat. So what happens is, let's say I'm given an image and my prediction is 0.65. The value of my sigmoid function is 0.65. So I'll say if y is equal to 1 is means a cat and y is equal to 0 means the image is not of a cat, and my prediction is 0.65, then I'll say, okay, this is image is of a cat. This is how logistic regression is used to make predictions. Next we have k nearest neighbor. So in k nearest neighbor, let's say I have a data point. Okay, what we do is, first of all, in k nearest neighbor, we take k and give it a value. The variable k, we give it a value, and the value we give should be an odd number. Now, why should it be an odd number? I'll tell you. So let's say I have this data point. I take k is equal to 3. So I find the 3 closest data point to my green data sample. The 3 closest data point cover 2 blue samples and 1 orange sample. So what happens is it assigns this green data point into the blue class. Now, if I had k is equal to some even number, let's say 4, then it might have taken the 4 closest samples and included this orange sample as well. Now, what would happen is that we have 2 blue and 2 orange samples. This will make it very difficult for the green sample to be classified because we have equal number of orange and blue samples with us. Okay, so what we do is we take k as an odd number, then we classify it, and we can use any matrix for the distance measurement, like Euclidean distance. We can use that for the measurement of our distance. So the majority number is taken, and this is how classification looks like. So we have clear boundaries on us of the blue color. As you can see here, it is even turning here because it is so accurate that no blue ones are misclassified with the green ones. Okay, now I have a code for you. So this is a code for classification. What we do is we import all the libraries, the major libraries that we need to use for our data, for our model. Then here we are reading the data. So home bias.csv, I'll just show you. This is our data. So we have age, estimated salary, and purchased. 0 is for not purchased and 1 is for purchased. So do we purchase a house or not? That we are predicting that. Okay. So we import this data and then so we see what are the class labels present in the data. So we have two kinds of class labels, 0 and 1, and the label count of the data is 257 and 143. So we have 257 people who did not purchase the house and 143 people who did purchase the house. Then we split the data. So here, as you can see, the test size is 0.2 and the Y train has 109 samples that do not purchase the data, do not purchase the house, and 111 samples, 111 people who do purchase the house. And in our Y test, we have 48 people who don't purchase the house and 32 who purchase the house. Next, we write the code for plotting decision regions. This code can basically be copied and pasted. You don't have to learn it. Then we combine both our train and test data for plotting. Now, in logistic regression, we first call the logistic regression algorithm. Then we fit our data to it. So basically what this does this line, it creates a function for our data. So the function is created as to how the model will fit on the data. And then this is for accuracy. So the accuracy of the data is 84% and the data classification is done here. So as you can see, even though there are some red points in the blue region and some blue points in the red region, it still forms a class. Like on the left side, there are all the red points, and on the right side, there are all the blue points. And that is why the accuracy is 84% and not higher, because there are still some misclassified samples. Then we have k nearest neighbor. So here we set the number of neighbors as 7. So the value of k here is 7. And the matrix we use is Euclidean. Now we'll print the accuracy of this as well. Now you can see the accuracy is a little higher than what we do with logistic regression, because logistic regression forms a straight cut line, and this here is forming a curved line to separate the data. So it's even messier than a curve actually, and it forms this partition to separate the two kinds of data. Now in linear regression, we import the libraries, then we import our data set. We split it as we did in the logistic regression classification problems as well. So here we can make it, let's say 30%. We are giving test size as test data set as 30% and train data as 70%. So we just have to make one like parameter, and the other parameter is set accordingly. Then we are calling the linear regression algorithm, and again we are fitting it to the data. So what this fitting does, it creates a function, it creates a line accordingly. Then we are plotting our data, and here we plot the data accordingly. So the blue points represent the test data set and the green points represent the train data set. So do we have any questions?
Are you done with the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Audience, any questions there? That was pretty fast actually.
Yeah.
Any more questions here? So I am posting the link of our YouTube channel where it will be posted.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions, please ask now. I posted Selstad YouTube channel link where it will be posted in 2 to 3 days time. And is this code that you've just shown, is it available on your GitHub, Mac?
No, I'll upload it on GitHub.
Okay, so when I post the video on our YouTube channel, probably she will put up her GitHub link there, if any of you would like to see. So since I'm not getting any more questions, so I would like to close it here. Thank you all for joining, and look forward to more sessions from Mac. Thank you. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Have a good day ahead.